Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My home state of Washington has one of the 5 largest populations of migrant farm workers in the country, and the contributions of farm workers to our communities and our economy simply cannot be overstated. In 2015, guest farm workers on pear, apple, and cherry operations alone contributing $619 million in economic activity in Washington state while putting food on the table for countless families across our state. It is absolutely essential that farm workers receive the same labor protections that federal laws afford to other workers. Migrant guest workers in particular need robust protections because their legal status is tied to their employer, which makes them especially vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. So, Ms. Romero, let me start with you. In your testimony, you mentioned some of the horrific labor abuses that were discovered during Operation Blooming Onion. In your experience, how widespread are abuses like those found in Operation Blooming Onion in the H-2A program, and how can Congress act to address these abuses?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Farm workers come to us every day telling us what the abuses are. In many cases, farm workers, when they come to work with an H-2A visa, their passport and their phones are taken by the recruiter because they want to make sure that the debt, the recruitment debt, is paid before they can send even money to home. I think the Farm Workforce Modernization Act would give legalization to these workers and would take away a big excuse to abuse, and not, in many cases, not to pay the workers for the work they have done. Workers have been sent home because without pay, saying we will be sending you your check, which they never received. The Farm Workforce Modernization Act would help here, but also it is important that we have the knowledge that these workers need somebody to help them represent their rights. And a union, a collective bargaining agreement could do that for them. They would be there to make sure that they have a voice, that they have somebody to talk to when abuses are happening.
Well, let's talk about collective bargaining agreements. In an April 21st letter to Secretaries Mayorkas and Walsh, United Farm Workers urged the Department of Labor to require H-2A employers to have collective bargaining agreements with a labor union. So just with a yes or no, Ms. Romero, I want to quickly go through a list of all the ways that unions and collective bargaining can help farm workers. Do they increase wages?
Yes.
How about strengthening workplace safety?
Absolutely.
How about improving employer-provided food, transportation, and accommodations?
Yes.
Increasing enforcement of wage protections?
Yes.
Protecting workers from retaliation?
Absolutely.
So these are many of the benefits that would come forward if we were to have unions able to have a critical role in protecting workers from abuse. Every single day, migrant farm workers experience exploitation, fraud, and abuse. The H-2A program desperately needs increased oversight and enforcement, and we have to do our work and continue towards meaningful reform. Mr. Costa, what barriers are there to the enforcement of wage requirements and workplace safety regulations for H-2A farm workers?
I think that the main issue is the temporary precarious immigration status that H-2A workers have. It just makes it too difficult to come forward and avail themselves of the Labor Department or other agencies because they're worried about retaliation, which could lead to deportation, which would not allow them to earn back the money that they probably paid in terms of illegal recruitment fees just to get that temporary job.
And how would unions help build trust between workers and worker protection agencies, and to what effect?
Well, I think they could help them know their rights, help them bring complaints forward with less fear by having more information. And obviously, I think a collective bargaining agreement is one of the best protections that a worker can have.
Absolutely right. Thank you all for your testimony, and I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Let me yield to Mr. Good. You have 5